Hi everybody, my name is Jim Harrold. I'd like to welcome you to the Fall 2015 session of PA 4530, Strategic Planning. Each week I will provide you with a PowerPoint presentation similar to this one. This will be a supplement to your reading and your assignments. It does not take the place of your reading and assignments. So keep that in mind as you view this, but right now, what I'd like you to do is put your PowerPoint viewer on presentation mode and go through this presentation, which will take about 10 minutes or so. I think it's really appropriate as we begin the semester that I talk about expectations. There are expectations of you as the student, and there are expectations of me as the instructor. The first expectation is that all students read and understand the syllabus. Of course, by this time in your college career, you know that every course has a syllabus, and you also know that each syllabus is a form of a contract. You have assignments to do, I have assignments to do. What I expect of you is that you understand what the syllabus says, and further, I expect you to get back with me if you have questions or concerns about the syllabus. Further, since this is an online course, I do expect that each student will review and understand the course layout on Blackboard. This is an online course. Everything we do is going to be on Blackboard, so it's really, really vital and important that you understand all the tabs and what's included in each of the tabs. Third, I expect each student to read and understand the assigned readings and other materials for the week. Again, everything works in concert. This presentation with the reading, with the other supplementary materials, everything works in concert with each other. One is not a substitute for the other. Fourth, I do expect that each student will participate in the weekly discussion board. This is our time to discuss the material with each other. And if some students choose not to participate, it degrades the discussion for everyone else. And then finally, I do expect that all students will complete their written assignments on time. More on that in just a couple of slides. Well, you should have expectations of me as well. And one is that I will grade your submissions properly. That includes your discussion boards and your written assignments as well. I usually take about 24 hours to do that, sometimes less. Sometimes I take as long as 48, but it will never be more than 48 hours. Second, you should expect that if you have feedback to me or if you have feedback to me or you have questions to me by email, I will get back with you within 24 hours. And then finally, on your written assignments, I will provide you quality feedback. I never simply give a student a written assignment back and say, well, good job or bad job. I usually try to say, here's some things you could have improved, here's some things you did right, and here's some feedback on how you can do better next time. There are 5 learning objectives, and these are a little bit redundant to what I just said. But the learning objectives for this week are, 1, that you will take the time to read the syllabus thoroughly. Read the syllabus this week. You may or may not be surprised that some students never read a syllabus until the last and closing weeks of a semester. That's not the time to understand the syllabus. I do expect that this week you will spend some time navigating the Blackboard site so you understand what's included on the site. This week, I want each student to introduce themselves to each other, and that's why I've included that as a graded introduction this week. And then I want each student to participate in a short discussion that I have this week on the importance of strategic planning. And then finally, this is the first week of the course. Please do mail me any concerns or questions that you have, and use my UNO email which is listed there. But do that promptly, and I will get back with you and address your concerns. Well, what can you expect each week of this 17-week semester? And the semester does have 17 weeks. That includes Thanksgiving week. And during Thanksgiving week, you won't be working on this course, but I number each, as you'll see, I number each week accordingly just so we can keep track of them. This is week 1. So each week you can expect that you will have a graded discussion board, and that our purpose on that is to demonstrate and facilitate learning. It's our class participation, so obviously what you put into it, you get out of it. You can expect 6 written assignments through the course, okay? this slide says what to expect each week. Don't expect six written assignments each week. There's 6 throughout the course. 4 of these are related to the term project. The term project I use a building block approach, and 2 I call short analysis assignments or essays that are related to other coursework. You can expect readings from the Bryson and Alston text, from supplemental text, or from available online sites, which I'll assign each week. And then you can expect a PowerPoint lecture just like this one every single week. So here's a short breakdown of the course requirements. I mentioned the discussion board. That's 5 points per discussion and 75 points total for all the discussion boards during the course. There are 2 short analysis essays that I will assign. The first one's due on September 26th. The second one due on October 31st. There's a lot more about that in the syllabus. As well, on the assignments tab, when it becomes available, I will specify what I want you to do on those short analysis essays. You will use the Blackboard site on the assignments tab to turn those assignments in, to attach those written assignments to Blackboard to turn them into me. Then finally, there's the term project. So I want to specify this is a term project, not a term paper. And as you can see in those points below, this is a 4-part project. I want you to do this in phases. So first of all, you're going to give me a proposal, which is going to be due on September 12th. Then by October 10th, you're going to provide me with an interview plan, because this project does require you to interview a person with a public or nonprofit organization. And the third part is your term project outline, and that will occur after you've done your interview, after you have a lot of your research done. You're going to outline your term project paper for me. That's graded as well. And then finally, the term project paper itself is due the week of finals, and that is 75 points of this project. So what you can see, I think, from this slide and from reading the syllabus, that everything we do is important. Everything we do impacts on your grade. So please don't, I really ask students not to do this. Please don't devise ways to say, well, I can skip all these discussions and get a C, or I can skip these 2 short analysis essays and get a C. Everything is cumulative and everything adds up. So I really endeavor to have all the students complete all the assignments. All right, let me switch gears and talk about strategic planning itself and what the heck we're doing here, and why in the world an organization should worry about strategic planning. Well, one of the things is that the world is changing. The world that your parents maybe knew, or your grandparents maybe knew, that's not the world we live in today. I assigned you this week the assignment of viewing this video called Planet Money Makes a T-Shirt. It's an entertaining video, but what it really talks about is how globalized the economy is, even for simple things that we all wear and consume, like T-shirts. And the second thing is that Robert Putnam, who's a famous author, made this observation in the year 2000, really before social media had really taken over the world in a sense, that social capital is declining. And that's why he wrote this famous book called Bowling Alone. You envision someone without social capital, without friends, literally bowling alone. And again, is this the world we're moving into? Even with social media, are we running out of social capital? And then third, demographic changes in the United States are changing the way our world looks. And I'm going to get into that in just a second here. And in the public sector, which is something I'm really vitally interested in, what we thought of as government is quickly being replaced by something called governance. So a really good example of that, in Omaha and other cities, for example, the city doesn't deal with the problem of homelessness. In fact, the city funds a lot of the relief for homeless people, but a lot of the homeless population is really taken care of in Omaha by nonprofit organizations. And so it's a cooperative venture with the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and sometimes the for-profit sector. So we're rapidly getting out of this mode where we think of the public sector, the private sector, the for-profit sector, the nonprofit sector, the government sector. These sectors are all networking really, really quickly with each other. And so what people could do 50 years ago, easily divide sectors, it's not so easy to do now. So the implication is that organizations have to learn who they are in order to succeed, and then how to work within a network of organizations. And that is really a focus of our course. I talked about this a second ago, age demographic changes. This is just one of the demographic changes going on in the United States. I got this from the Census Bureau, and I include the document on your supplemental readings this week. But I want you to look at this top dashed line. That's called the dependency ratio. And so there's two other lines there. The lighter one talks about youth dependency, and the darker one talks about old age dependency. Well, let's just take that old age dependency line. On the left-hand side of the graph, at around 2015, about 23%, there's a dependency ratio of about 23% old age. What that means is that about 23% of old age people depend on working age people. Now, trace that to 2060, and it's 40%. So what that means is for every 4 people over 65, there are 6 workers. Well, you know, when Social Security was invented in 1935, it was almost a century ago now, but when Social Security was invented in 1935, there were 20 plus workers for every aged person. By 2060, there will be 6 workers for every 4 aged persons. So think about the social implications of that. Here's another subject that comes up a lot. In fact, it's coming up a lot in our presidential elections, and this is U.S. Nativity. That is where a person was born. And what I'd like you to look at is there's a line on those bar charts that talks about percent foreign-born population. In the late 1800s, it was a phenomenon similar to what we see now, and that was that a large portion of the U.S. population was foreign-born. And today, a large portion of the U.S. population is foreign-born, and that is increasing. Now, how does that affect things? If you listen to the media, you will hear all kinds of views on this. But the simple fact of the matter is that this is a demographic change that will change the way organizations do their business. So what is strategic planning? Well, in another text, a text I don't use, but this quote is quoted in the book we're using now. Strategic planning is a deliberative, disciplined approach to producing fundamental decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization or entity is, what it does, and why. So planning helps us to really think about what we're doing, to gather and synthesize information, to produce judgments, to address key organizational issues, to enhance organizational learning, and to create significant and enduring public value. This is a chart that's in your book on page 5 of the book. And go to page 5, and this is a simplification of what strategic planning really should be doing for us. And really, it's 3 questions that an organization has to ask itself. And not just once when it's doing strategic planning, but continuously. Where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? And this is what strategic planning helps an organization to do. Answer these 3 questions. Well, here's a little bit more complicated chart. This is also in your text. This happens to be in the 2nd chapter, which is not a reading for this week. But This is Bryson's what's called the strategy change cycle. Now, this is a 10-step approach to changing strategy. I'm just going to tell you right now, we're not going to refer to every one of these steps, but we're going to refer to quite a few of them during the semester. So this is one chart on page 16 of your text that you want to take a look at. We're going to keep referring to it throughout the semester. And I really don't need to say a whole lot more about it right now, except that next week we're going to talk about step 2, which is mandates. Well, what is strategic planning? What isn't it? What it isn't is, it's not a panacea. A lot of organizations, and this has happened in the nonprofit sector, the government sector, where I worked for a long time, the for-profit sector, someone comes up with the bright idea to come up with a strategic plan, and they think that's going to substitute for poor leadership and poor management. It doesn't. Simply producing a plan isn't going to solve an organization's problems. Second, it's not always advisable. There's reasons why you wouldn't do a plan. You wouldn't start doing strategic planning in an organization where literally the roof has fallen in and things are falling apart all around you. Pick up the pieces first. And then in some organizations, they simply lack the leadership commitment to do strategic planning. And then I really want to harp on this third one. Strategic planning is not creating some book or formal plan that nobody's ever going to read. An old movie from the 90s, Office Space, if you just want to laugh about organizational faux pas and how not to plan strategically, that's a good movie to watch sometime. So here's some things I want you to consider this week. I want you to consider this idea that strategic planning is a deliberative approach. We're deliberating with each other. And that's really what organizations need to do. They're deliberating about those 3 questions. Where are we? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? I want you to think about the importance of strategic planning in light of things like globalization, things like demographic changes. I want you to think about the idea that strategic planning is not about creating some document. And then I mentioned the 10-step model. I showed that real briefly. It's on page 16 of your text. That is going to be our outline for the semester, but we won't go through it step by step. But it's going to be an important touchstone for you to use as a reference. So really, that's it. Those are the references I used in this. I just always want to remind students to reference their work. And I will say, in terms of references, make sure that when you're writing your papers, you use references. I have a lot more to say about that later. And let me just throw in one last pitch for that. In your syllabus and important information tab, I do include a link to what's called the Purdue OWL. That's the Purdue University Online Writing Lab. That is a great resource for this course. That's a great resource for any course. It's a great resource for all other kinds of writing, such as writing your resume, doing some business writing. That's why I include that for you, because I think it's vitally important during your college career that you learn to write properly. I think that's going to help you in whatever kind of organization you work. And so I threw those pitches in just at the end. That wasn't in my script, but that's the end of this week's lecture. And please do let me know if you have questions. Thanks a lot.